who you heard from, an international author, speaker, entrepreneur, passionate about helping world changers launch and scale their ventures. He's a father of 2 incredible girls, a husband, co-founder of The Enlightrepreneurs, and co-owner of Nolia Coffee in Durham, which is how I first knew Justin, though he did not know me at the time. I was just buying coffee.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, no problem. Dave Gold is an author, former trial attorney, business consultant, founder of several successful startups. And the Enlightrepreneurs podcast for him is a continuation of his 40-plus-year mission to help purpose-driven entrepreneurs and professionals connect their highest calling with what the world needs most. These 2 host the Enlightrepreneurs podcast. I'm sure they'll share a bit more about that and have convened many of the speakers on this panel. I'll turn it over to Dave and Justin to take it from here. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Tim. Great. It's been so wonderful working with you. So I'm going to get right over to Dave. Dave, how in the world did we cook this thing up with Mr. Tim Scales and American Underground? Give us a bit of the origin story of this event to give people some context.
We got lots of voices, so I'm going to keep my remarks brief. So Justin and I started this, I don't know, end of last year, beginning of this year, the Enlightrepreneur podcast. And like everyone who's on this panel and everyone who's watching this, we pivoted in mid-March. We had our big event, our big live event planned, and speaker coming in from Switzerland, and the virus hit. We had to pivot. And one of the first pivots we made was with one of our panelists, Tom Ferguson. And we talked with Tom and realized that we needed to respond immediately to what was happening. We didn't know how to respond or who to respond with. We knew a response was needed. And Tom came on and really just helped the restaurateurs and other people in similar industries figure out who to pay, who not to pay. And that was kind of the launching of this pivot where we just decided we were going to respond to this moment every way we could. And what we found is not only does this moment require speed, it engenders speed. Things can just happen a hell of a lot faster. And this event is a great example of that, because we were talking to Tom on Monday, just kind of a check-in, and Tom was talking about people coming back to work, and not just like, okay, what does this mean with Corona? It's like, there was all these trends already happening that were going to happen anyway. And now, what does this moment mean in relationship to that whole trajectory of what work's going to look like? And so we got really excited about that. And then we had our first call with Tim, who we didn't realize he came into your coffee shop earlier and probably left your big old tip, which is one reason we like him so much. We're giving you the benefit of the doubt on the tip.
I love the big tips.
And we just happened to mention that. And so within like 45 minutes of talking to Tom and talking to Tim, this was born. And so the idea is when we say back to work, we're not just talking about what does it mean, like with, Shaina, I know quite well in terms of what it means in a dentistry office to bring people back in this particular moment. But what does it mean in terms of the whole trajectory of work? And maybe most importantly, what does it mean in terms of the values that you have that got you into this business? Because that's how we're going to steer through this, each in our individuated ways and collectively as well.
Right.
That's it. Fort Pitt.
I should have timed that. That was a record. That was beautiful. Okay. You nailed it. So this event, pardon?
I deserve to be unmuted for the rest of the call now. Did I earn that right?
You earned at least 5 more minutes of unmutation.
Terrific.
Yeah, that's what we're going with. So this event very much is a think tank of really beautiful leaders who are doing things the right way and leading with heart. What it is not is us giving a bunch of answers. It's more us exploring the questions, because this moment, coronavirus and what's happening, in the economy, health, all factors, it's requiring us to, ironically, slow down and pay attention and ask the right questions, not just have the right answers. And so that's what this panel is about. And we have some incredible, incredible panelists, and we are going to introduce them to you now. So we'll start with Zemo. Dave, could you introduce Zemo?
Sure. And just to tell everyone what we're going to do, we're going to do an intro, let each panelist talk for like a minute, and then we're going to go back and do this round table after that. So
yeah.
So
and one more housekeeping, just quick housekeeping before we jump in. Comments, questions, put them in the chat function, please. And if you have a question for a specific panelist, please include, I'm asking Tom Ferguson or I'm asking Shaina this question. And also, we know that we only have an hour on here, and we have way more firepower, as Dave would say, way more firepower than an hour warrants. And so at the end of the hour, if you have to jump off, no problem. But we will keep the conversation going if there is stuff to talk about, which I assume there will be. So you're welcome to stay on. Same thing for panelists, hop off if you have to. But we're just going to keep that rolling. So very good, very good. All right, Dave, who's Zemo?
So Zemo is what we would call in the business a button-down corporate consultant, which I don't really know a lot of those, and I certainly don't have a lot of those as my friends in my world. Zemo for 25 years has been consulting for Fortune 100 companies, primarily in the pharma industry. And one thing about Zemo, even though he knows what he does it really, really well, and he gets paid very, very well for what he does, he never stops growing. And part of what's emerging, as we found in his wisdom and co-authoring our book, is that Zemo cares deeply. And right now there's a transformation happening where he feels drawn to our community as well, to smaller companies, even though it's not what he does, because that's where his heart is taking him. So Zemo, why, tell me your why. Why are you in this business, and how is it driving you in this moment in 60 seconds or less?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna pivot from that to say why I'm doing what I'm doing at this particular moment. And a second industry that I've worked a lot in addition to pharma, is offshore oil drilling. And from those guys, that's the first people I've ever been around in my life who actually live safety. They don't just do it at work. They don't just talk about it. They don't just come up with policies. They, you know, when you're on a rig with 100 other guys, and everything you do either adds to or detracts from the likelihood that you're going home safe to your family, it cultivates a sense of safety as a way of living, and paying attention to the environment around us and what, you know, potential threats are. And the COVID crisis has brought that way of thinking to the front for me. And so a lot of what we're talking about today has to do with, I think, a lot of us waking up to, we have to think specifically now about what it means to be safe in ways that we have not consciously had to think of before. And it's a different way of thinking. It leads to different ways of operating. It leads to different ways of caring for each other. And so right now, that's a big part of the why of what I'm doing, is helping us talk to each other and think together in ways where we can convene together on the meaning of what does it mean to be safe together. Wow.
And I almost think there's even another layer to the safety. It's a bit more like sustainability, if you go a layer deeper, that we're actually positioned as leaders, as businesses, as communities to thrive long term, which includes physical safety, but also includes us, you know, not pillaging the earth. And it has a lot of other factors when you look at it from that lens.
That's right. And just to make explicit, a piggyback on top of your piggyback, safety requires dialogue. It's not just physical safety and the rules of physical safety. Environments are safest in which frontline workers and supervisors or anybody have the ability to talk openly with each other. And when you talk openly together, information gets skipped, rules get ignored, and what we're doing here, dialogue, is what makes all of us potentially more sustainable, Justin, and safer.
Wow. Thanks, Zemo. Thank you. So glad to have you here. So next we have Aisha Allen. Really excited to have Aisha here joining us from Las Vegas. She is a doctor-prepared nurse anesthetist, nailed that word, currently practicing in the military. Outside of the hospital, she is a social media content creator, guru, consultant on that front, business owner, diversity consultant, and mentor. And really all of her work lives at the intersection of healthcare, wellness, and entrepreneurship. Phenomenal human being. Aisha, what is your why? What drives you? What makes you come alive?
I just want to say, I apologize. There's a lot of planes. I live on base in a tiny home, so there's not a lot of sound protection. So you guys can hear some things going on. So for me, my why is all the things that you just said, but now more than ever, I find it, and I have found it so important to show the general public what it is like in healthcare. Just like you said, Zemo, most people have not had to plan for safety or really think about safety. Whereas in my everyday life, I have about 10 different plans on how I need to put somebody to sleep and wake them back up safely. What happens if there's an OR fire, all of these things. And then I've also noticed that the public has a difficult time kind of navigating through this in a way that is healthy. And then on the entrepreneur front, I want to just share my life and with the things that I'm doing with people that look like me. Because right now there's not a lot of faces probably on this Zoom call like me. And so I just continue doing what I'm doing to share.
Awesome. So glad that you're here. All right, Tom Ferguson. Dave, why don't you introduce Tom?
Tom is a man of many paradoxes.
Well said.
When I was introduced to him by Jim Verdonick, who's another one of the co-authors of our ebook, and anytime Jim introduces someone, you got to see him. And I heard he was into bird watching, but what do I meet is this ex-paratrooper tatted up on his arms, big burly guy, you know, with a red face, who's been a paratrooper and every other damn thing. And Tom is first of all, he's a brilliant businessman. He founded and grown Rise Biscuits. They got 16 locations. There'll soon be thousands of them, I'm sure. And, but he's also someone who cares so deeply. It's just amazing. And the juxtaposition between who you might think he is when you first meet him and what comes out of his mouth is just beautiful. And he's been a real help for us and for the community. And we're glad to have you, Tom. So I know so many of your whys. I don't know if you can summarize your whys in 60 to 90 seconds, but take your best shot.
Hey, thanks, Dave. So a little over 2 years ago, I had a nervous breakdown, and I found myself in rehab. And while I was in rehab, I had the time to write a cultural manifesto for my company. And that was great because I was able to put into words what my feelings were. But when I came back to reality, to my life, technology has started to move really, really fast. And I jumped on that and really started adapting our company with technology that went so fast that a lot of my friends and peers that have restaurants went out of business in the last year and a half. As you guys probably noticed, a lot of restaurants quitting or stopping or just not being able to keep up with it. And I'm really interested in culture, technology, and the mental well-being for everybody moving forward. And I think that right now what's happening is happening so fast that we're reacting to what's happening right now at this moment. That is the physical well-being of everybody. That what I see happening and looking down the road a bit is the mental things that are going to start affecting people that are going to be pretty dramatic. And I want to try to screen that thought to as many people as I can to let's pay attention to what's getting ready to happen, at least partially right now while we're dealing with the immediate ramifications.
Yeah. Awesome. So glad to have you, Tom. And yeah, just a beautiful thinker. And I'm excited for what you bring to this panel as well. Next, Maggie Kane, founder and executive director of A Place at the Table, which is the first Pay What You Can cafe in downtown Raleigh. A beautiful model, doing beautiful work. And outside the cafe, you will catch her running marathons and eating peanut butter. First question I have for you, Maggie, is crunchy or smooth?
Crunchy, 100%.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
Salt added.
You can stay.
Salt added. Okay, crunchy, extra salt, extra gluten, all the things.
All the things.
All the things. And right now you are going to catch her at her cafe, loving on people all day, which I have seen in action. You live this, you live from it. So what is your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why did you get started?
Yeah, appreciate that. You are doing the exact same thing at your coffee shop. So yes, for all who have not been, we are in downtown Raleigh, a Pay What You Can cafe. Years ago, I was working in homelessness, so got to know a ton of amazing humans who were experiencing poverty and happened to sleep outside. And I was working at a day shelter, and I saw that there were really great soup kitchens that fed people, and there were really great restaurants that fed people. There was no place that combined everyone, no place where everyone could come together and have a meal and get to know each other. My why is people. I think the only way we are going to make it out of this life and have good lives are with each other and with people. So I really wanted to create a place where all people could find and come together. Hence A Place at the Table. We've been open 2 years. Now my why is the same, but very, very different. Our model has changed, and I can get into more of that later, but we are feeding a ton more people, but we are staying true to our mission and still giving people a option of what to choose. So having that choice is so crucial. All of us deserve choice and agency, and being able to choose what you want is really important, that many of us get to do every day. And then that dignity as well. So making that human connection and building that community, even if it's curbside, outside, on the line, 10 feet apart, marked by arrows. So that's my why. It's people. It's bringing the community together. Our main mission at Place at the Table is to provide community and good food for all, regardless of means. So yes, right now we are feeding 300 people every single day a free meal, but we are still focusing on that community being first, is how can we continue to build that community that we all need, we all crave, that will make us make life better and make us be able to get stuff done and it just be a better life, more joyful life.
Oh,
Maggie, I want to say something because our mutual friend Danny Rose and one of your board members, if I meet with him, I can only meet at your place. That's the price to pay to meet with Danny.
Yep.
But what struck me there was there's a mood there, but there's a dignity that everybody carries, from top to bottom. And it was not a force. It's not like, hey, I'm a homeless person, but I'm going to act like I'm not. There's something about what you're giving people just allowed. And that's what I felt top to bottom, just this beautiful dignity that you've got in the place and that you're imbuing with everyone. And when you walk in, you sit up straighter and you look people in the eye. And it's just really just a beautiful, transformative culture created there.
Thanks.
So, yes.
Appreciate that.
Beautiful work. Beautiful. Thanks, Maggie. Next is Dawn Shin, founder and CEO of Comm, an award-winning mobile web and immersive app development studio. Tons of awards. They've done a lot of really neat stuff. And what I'm most interested in is Dawn's heart. We got to connect with Dawn a few days ago to talk about this event, and he is a passionate man who cares deeply about community, cares about human-centric interfaces, so using his technology to be transformative. And one thing I can say about Dawn is asking the right questions. How do we be engaged, and how does my company actually use its influence properly to advance social good? And anyway, just beautiful. Happy to have you here. Dawn, what is your why? I need to unmute you. I don't know if I have. Oh, I think you're good. All right, Dawn, why? Why are you in this business? Why are you doing what you do?
Yeah, so I got started because I was enamored with innovation and technological innovation and how it could be leveraged to transform the way we do work in life. But why I'm here at this panel is probably a more interesting answer for you all, is that I've been wrestling with and struggling with the question, what is our responsibility to our own communities right now as we exit out of the long isolation and enter into the long recovery? What is our responsibility to each other to preserve and protect the health of our ecosystems? That's our physical health, our economic health, our mental health, and the well-being of our neighborhoods, our business communities, the people around us. That's a question that I've been wrestling with, and frankly, I have more questions than answers, but I'm hoping that part of this conversation will help give me a little more intuition and insight into what our options are as a member of Durham, look into what is my part.
So beautifully said. Thanks, Dawn. All right, and last panelist, Shaina Holman. Dave, could you introduce Dr. Shaina?
Dr. Shaina is my dentist. And when I went into her office the first time, I was struck. I mean, the bar was low. It's just I wanted to get out of here as quickly as I could because she's a dentist. But what I noticed was that everybody in the place was happy. Her people were happy. They greeted you. And it wasn't just like, smile so you don't freak out. And it's become so apparent that I thought, this woman's an entrepreneur. I never really realized we were able to engage outside of the chair. But what we found, Justin and I, in working with her fully, is in addition to being a dentist, she's also an entrepreneur who helps other entrepreneurs, and specifically in the dental field. But she's created a culture now that her people want to be back to work. They can't wait to do enough. And there's a magic there. And Shane, I want you to talk about the why that got you into this business and how that's managed to create, if you can't do this in 90 seconds again, the culture that you feel as soon as you walk into your dental office.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I have a dental practice in Chapel Hill. It's a startup. I opened it from scratch in the very end of 2017, and it has kind of exploded since. It's grown really fast. But I really felt like I had to start my own office so that I could have the office culture I wanted and to be able to help the people I wanted to help. I had a vision for being able to help people regardless of their financial situation. I wanted to be able to accept Medicaid, which is pretty much like doing charitable work because the overhead is so high. But, I want to be able to accept Medicaid, but also see regular patients that are cash paying and not have it be anywhere where anyone would feel uncomfortable about that. And I want to have employees that were so motivated to come to work and loved what they do and understood the impact they were having in their community that, that they were just excited about all of it. And I wanted to just foster that. And unfortunately, a lot of dental offices are very profit driven. They really burn out their employees. I used to temp a lot before I started my practice, and I remember one office where every single assistant told me that they were on anti-anxiety, like they would take an anti-anxiety med right when they walked in the door to off the office before starting work.
Wow.
I've just seen and heard a lot of crazy stuff, and I just said I need to do this my own way and set it up how I want to set it up. And it's been really fun. I use social media a lot to communicate my story, my vision, who I am, and people have really connected to that, which has been fun. And I think this whole pandemic situation has really been a test to our office culture and with our patients, and it's been really exciting to see how everyone on my team's really stepped it up in this time, and they have my back, and they send me encouraging text messages, and they know that I'm doing everything I can to be able to return back to work safely. And I've been doing excessive amounts of research on how to make that possible, because as a dentist, I'm in people's mouths generating aerosols. So that is an extremely high risk profession.
Yeah.
So we have done extensive research, just trying to get everyone back on their feet. But my biggest thing is making sure my team feels safe and comfortable, and my patients feel safe and comfortable, and that I have a viable business with doing things a little differently. And I feel really excited about that part of it. I think we've really kind of figured this out, and we're going back to work full time on Monday, but this whole time I've been seeing emergencies only. So.
Yeah. You're doing a wonderful job leading your team through this. Such beautiful work. So I'm opening it up now to the panel, and want to start with this one question, which Maggie, you started in this direction, which is, as heart-centered entrepreneurs, leaders, business owners, which all of you are on this panel, we all have our true north, like our values that actually drive our work and the why we got started and all of that. How in the world are you remaining centered on your true north, actually getting your bearings in such a disruptive time like this? And I want to start with Maggie, because you started going in that direction. Let's see if I can unmute Maggie. Oh, there we go.
I think you did. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So what are you doing practically and to realign to your values in such a disruptive moment?
Yeah, for sure. I think focusing on what our mission is, I mentioned that briefly before, but what is our mission and why are we doing this work? So truly focusing on that, we could go many, many different ways, but focusing on what is our mission and how do we just innovate and turn it to what the reality is right now. Leaning on other people. I'm not in this alone. None of us are. So leaning on other people that have great ideas as well, because I'm not meant to do this by myself. And so none of us are. So I'm leaning on a lot of other people with their ideas, leaning what Shaina said, my staff is awesome. And I have throughout this whole process, I have said to them, if and when you want to close, if and when you feel uncomfortable, we will close. And so just including them in the conversation, asking what their ideas are. What do they think we should change to make it work better? Or what should the menu be? Whatever that may be. But collaboratively working on it. And not feeling like I, as the CEO and head of it all, need to make all the decisions, because I don't have the decisions. None of us, I don't have the answers. None of us do. But I think good things come when we work together.
Oh, so true. Thank you. Thank you. Any other panelists want to chip in on that? Oh, sorry, Dave, what were you saying?
Any of you panelists want to chip in on that?
Is that what you
Because I could call. Yeah, I know, we're good. So Zemo, I'm curious how that kind of translates, because this is your job. This is what you do in terms of collaborative and team building, what you heard and how that relates to what you see.
Oh, I might have to go and
I keep noticing.
Oh, there we go.
I keep noticing it just wave after wave as this whole thing unfolds, how so much of what's happened in these past couple months seems utterly unreal and unlike anything that's ever happened before. And yet at the same time, then I step back and everything that's happened just simply reinforces everything that we already knew. So there, you spoke of paradox and Tom being a man of paradox. That's one of the big paradoxes to me. The very same things apply, and they just apply even deeper, than they did before. How it is, as Maggie just said, that we actually connect and rely on each other. I would say I have been more deeply influenced more frequently and by a greater number of people over the past couple months than any time period I can think of in the past. Partly because I need it more, and partly because people are digging deep. And this is kind of related to that, but for me, one of the ways that I express my true north is peace. I believe I believe that when I am at peace and when we are at peace, that's a state of being connected to the reality that's going on around us, accepting of the reality that's going on around us, and being choiceful about what there is to do next, given the reality around us. Ironically, I reached this point the month before all this happened where I'm just experiencing being at a deeper place of peace in my life than I ever had. And then all of a sudden this happened.
You were well prepared.
For me to do, but go, okay. Now I get to be at peace with this. Again, it's the same stuff, just applying it to the present moment.
Yeah. Tom, what are you seeing?
You know, I've always described myself as a player's coach because I was a line cook for a really long time, longer than most people before I started my own business. And in the last couple of years, with the technology driving my business so much and the adjustments we've had to make, whether it's from kiosk ordering in the store or online ordering or third-party deliveries. And we used to be in a business when I started, you only made your order through a cashier. And now these other things have opened up, and they had a promise of making the customer have a better experience, whether it's because the food was delivered to their home or it was faster and just pre-order before you went and pick it up. But all these things come with a cost. And the technology fees that are involved with this made us have to restructure the amount of people we had in our store. So the things that this brought, something had to go. And what went over the last few years is kind of the things that gave people reasons to go to work in the first place. Whether it was a bigger group of people and the camaraderie that they had, whether it was the creativity or just the pace of business, all that's kind of changed really fast. And I was already pretty aware and trying to put my thumb on it because we had, just before the virus, had hit a point where all the things that we had implemented kind of came together. So the virus itself didn't cause much disruption in my business. We're already doing sales numbers above what pre-virus numbers were. And we made the small changes that we had to make in the store. But I still had the problem that I had before the virus, and that's how my employees interact with technology and how as employers interact with technology. And I see it as, we used to have an employer-employee relationship. Well, now you almost have to look at it, the technology is another dynamic to that. And how does the employee deal with technology and the employer deal with technology? Because it's becoming the technology is that asshole employee that nobody likes, whether it's the employer or the employee, yet it has such a strong position in the business. And especially going forward after what we're in right now, that it really has to be dealt with. So most of my efforts now, my true north is the culture of my company and the employee-employer relationship. But I've just been reaching out to my mentors, reaching out to friends, other people in the business and talking about this. And overall, most of them aren't really seeing this. They're stuck in the moment right now. So what do we have to do today to see tomorrow? And I'm looking a little bit more forward and saying, no, this is going to be a huge shift in the dynamics of the workplace that we have to address. Because you look at reasons people work before, they enjoy coworkers. They made an impact. They're proud of the work they do. They feel recognized. Little bits of all those things that I just told you have been stripped away because of technology. And then the last point I want to make is that the technology companies that are there are trying to make money off of this, right? So the money's staying at the top, or it's being used to buy other companies or expand what they do, but the money's not trickling down. So any savings that I get at a restaurant through technology is being charged to me by the technology fees. And as an employee, all they're doing is using technology and not making any more money at the extent. So it's not trickling down, and that's a little bit what Wayne was talking about in the banks is the universal income, how that's going to affect. And then how is a $15 minimum wage going to affect my business, where we're on the lower level of wages? How's that going to affect us after we've got universal income and I'm going to work less, or someone who's getting $15 an hour, who may have been the hardest worker in the store, is making a couple dollars more than somebody else, is now going to be on the equal setting with somebody else. And how we're going to do flex pays and stuff like that. So it's getting a little bit complicated in how we're going to keep people motivated into the future. But I think that the thought has to be, technology has to be looked at as one of the paradigms in our company.
Well, and it's accelerating, right? This rate of change, we're hitting this.
It's doubling every 18 months, as they say. There's lawsuits. So
and so one of the things that we're excited with and exploring right now with Tom is actually fleshing out that conversation a lot more, the technology piece, because Tom is really thinking ahead, doing the research ahead, and has proven, I mean, even in his business already, to be ahead of this curve, or at least paying attention, has his finger on the pulse. And so we want to explore that conversation a little more, because I think that has perhaps some of the biggest implications for what the future looks like even after and in the midst of pandemics. And this might actually be accelerating it because of how much we are now. I mean, we're having a Zoom round table right now. I don't know what's round about that, but this is where we are. I want to take it in a little bit of a different direction here. So Dave, what do you got? What do you got on the next piece of our docket here?
I don't know. What do you want to? I don't. You know me. I don't pay any attention to documents.
No, and that's why I'm asking.
Good. Because my sense is I want to open up so the panelists just talk and we can kind of step aside. And I'm wondering if any of the other three panelists, if Aisha, Shaina, or because I got to figure Dawn in particular, this got to be like, wow, these are all the same questions I'm asking right now. Maybe I'll just kind of follow up with you. What does this lead into in terms of what you're finding as a true technologist right now is looking at these questions?
Well, I know in the hospital, I just kind of commented in the chat.
Yeah,
we're already making changes to what our daily structure looks like every single day. We are all wearing N95s, no matter if we're in the operating room or not. We are distancing people from picking up medicine, so no lines at all. Office spaces, half of the people that are supposed to be in the office stay home, and you're kind of operating in teams. So some people are in the hospital or in the office, and some people are at home, and then you swap. Shields near desks. So those are the things that we're already changing right now. And what we see in the hospital is real. We see so many different things on social media and the news and people not taking it seriously. And as soon as you walk into a hospital, I can tell you guys that it's so serious. And it is important that you kind of take these ideas and the notion that COVID is going to be around for forever seriously, because we don't even have a vaccine for it. So making sure you're taking the open suggestions and 50% this and 25%, taking those seriously with your office as well, not just restaurants.
So that was to Brett's question in the chat. Brett said that he's struggling with the safety of students returning to campus and also his open mic. Aisha, what are the safety, like really practical, boots on the ground? I know you're pretty up to date on what's going on in North Carolina. What are you suggesting though, from a frontline health worker? What do people need to be looking at right now from strictly a safety standpoint?
So one of the things that I didn't realize until talking to friends and family is that people don't know how to properly sanitize their hands or their spaces. So doing that every single day, when you're walking into work, washing your hands, cleanliness is one of the easiest things that we can start with. I've seen a lot of people wearing gloves and touching everything and then using those gloves to consume their food, not understanding that gloves don't work that way. So it's, So really starting with, do we have someone cleaning the office or whatever space that you're working in, diligently using the proper products that kill viruses. And then the amount of space that you have in between the people that are there for work, even though 6 feet technically is not going to do anything. As far as they say 6 feet, but you can still contract a virus if you are coughing or sneezing, that spreads the virus. So limiting the amount of people, they say, could help. And so I would abide by the county or the state, wherever you are, and see what the recommendations are, and I'd follow those as strictly as possible.
Well, and I would even say for the state and county recommendations, I mean, we have states and counties who are, we want to open everything up right away and all this type of stuff. So do you have any advice on that? Like, what if you have you're in a place where they're like, no, let's just get back to business. What would you say to business owners that are in that type of predicament who could technically be open or doing whatever, a bunch of things? Like, is that the guideline, or should you go further? What do you think?
Right. Just based off what I'm seeing, we are still getting people in the hospital that are sick. And so with that being said, I would say to take it slowly. Even though you may have the opportunity to just go full force, I would adhere to some of these things that we have been adhering to in some type of fashion. I wouldn't just go full force because people are still sick. I have friends in different places that are still seeing their units packed full, patients dying, and general public really doesn't see that. So I would take it a little bit slower.
So I'd like to follow up on that with Shaina, because you got both of these. You got your culture and you've got the health, the safety of being in people's mouths all day. So talk just generally about that, but also how your safety concerns are kind of interfacing with just the way you want to run your practice anyway. Is she unmuted?
I thought so.
No, she's...
There we go.
Okay,
there we go.
Thanks. Yeah, so we're doing a lot. So as a dental office, I haven't been given really any guidelines other than if I'm generating aerosols, I need to wear an N95 or higher. And if not aerosols, a face shield and a mask. And they've given us then a few recommendations, but you would think that the ADA and CDC and OSHA would have given us a lot more than they have, and they have not. So I've had to get very creative. I've been doing a ton of research. So a few things that any of you guys could implement in your businesses is getting medical grade HEPA filters. You can get them on Amazon. I have ones that are the Medify brand, and they were like $150 each, and you switch out the filters every 4 months. So I put one of those in each of my treatment rooms, and those will filter out the air in a room, in a 200 square foot room, so like a treatment room. Those will filter out the air in 10 to 15 minutes. But you can get bigger ones that will get a bigger space. Like there's ones that can do 2,000 square feet in 5 minutes. There's some big ones that you can get. Those are more expensive, but I have one of those going in each room. I'm about to buy a fogger. Have you guys heard of these?
No.
Hypochlorous acid fogging.
Yes.
So let's in a hospital setting or in an airplane, you basically have this machine, and it just blows gas into the air. And it leaves an antibacterial surface. And it's supposed to be that way actually for a long time. You shouldn't need to do it constantly. But I'm going to buy one of these so I can just do the fogging in my office at the end of every day. And so there's almost an antibacterial coating, if you will, throughout the office. Just like Aisha said, when people walk in our door, we're immediately saying, go wash your hands before you even sit down in the chair. And that way everyone knows that everyone is doing this. We are doing pre-screening questionnaires over the phone, and then again having them go through those questions when they're sitting in the chair. So there are things that are changing with our culture, but my culture has always been what my patients know me for is always going above and beyond for everything. So I even have a lot of these infection control measures I was already doing. And so a lot of other offices are feeling the crunch of needing to buy all this stuff and do things differently when we've already kind of had all that stuff. But I'm still making some changes, and I think that part of my culture is, if anything, it's emphasized. They're hearing. I have a lot of patients that I've seen only one time because I only did a very specific procedure for them, like an emergency visit, or I'm seeing their kids but not the parent, or I'm seeing the parent but not the kids. I do a lot of infant tongue tie releases, so I've seen maybe their newborn, but not them as a dental patient. And when I send out emails to my patients and I explain all these things we're doing and how and I emphasize, I'm adhering to our office's values of going above and beyond. I'm not required to do any of this stuff, but I'm researching this. I'm taking care of my people. I'm taking care of my patients, and I'm doing all this stuff. We're getting a lot of responses to those emails saying, you know what, my dentist isn't doing any of this stuff. I'm coming to you guys. You're being so much more thoughtful. They're just telling me to check in from the car. And they're saying, other than that, business as usual. And so people recognize those things, and that ties really into your culture to go above and beyond in every aspect of how you take care of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, the filter units are pretty reasonable to implement. The hypochlorous acid, you have to buy a little, almost like a hot pot kind of thing that makes it, and then you put in the fogging machine and you can fog your office. There are services you can contract to come and do that on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, so you can do that kind of thing. of course, hand washing, hand sanitizer, but the screening questions are helpful. If you're in a situation or business where you can implement that, like even in a classroom setting, like they were talking about in the chat, you could really like screen your students even. And so that way they all know that everyone in the room has been screened and been asked these questions. So there's a lot of little things you can do, but I've definitely had to get creative myself because of the lack of guidance.
Well, and I'm hearing from you the thoughtfulness and intentionality, which applies to any business, right? Just being thoughtful, doing the research, getting intentional. And then the other big piece that you're doing really well is communicating that to the public, to your people, to your clients and everybody. And I think those two principles carry weight in any industry or with any piece there.
And I do that a lot with social media. Social media is very helpful to do that and show people what you're implementing and how it's above and beyond.
Yeah, awesome. Dawn, are you there?
You got to mute it.
Oh, did I mute him again?
You really like
I need panelists, maybe stay unmuted because then it's hard to find you after. Dawny, there's Dawn. Okay, I unmuted you. You might still have to unmute yourself, Dawn.
Oh,
there we go. So,
right.
Dawn, I actually wanted to give you an opportunity to re-ask your question of the panel, specifically what you're trying to think about as a technology company, as someone who's engaged in the community, which all people are. What are you exploring right now? And let's have the panel go into that question for you.
Yeah, I'll dive into that and also dive into one of the other questions that you posed about the kind of opportunities that this season presents. So a former president once said, at a time that was really formative in my life, that adversity introduces a man to himself. And I think that one of the benefits of this coronavirus season is that we're all getting to become acquainted with ourselves and our own values. Principles are things that you adhere to even when times are tough.
Yeah.
And so, we're all thinking about what are the things that are most important to us right now: survival, our families, our morals and our beliefs and our ethics. And the other thing that this coronavirus season, one of the unexpected positives, is it reminds all of us that our fates are intertwined, which in my perspective is the prerequisite for community. How do communities form? It's just kind of the sense that our fates are intertwined. So, I'm a North Carolinian, I'm a Durhamite, our fates are intertwined if you live in Durham. I'm an American Underground, our fates are intertwined. In my neighborhood, it's in my interest for my neighborhood to be healthy and for my neighbors not to have COVID-19. Our fates are intertwined. Yeah. And
even on a global level, right? We are completely, the borders mean nothing right now as far as COVID is concerned.
Yes. And we all have a responsibility to each other. And so one of the things that this crisis, in terms of my reaction to it, and I don't share this to be prescriptive, it's just kind of my own personal reaction and story, was the day that the stock market crashed. By the way, this is my third recession now in my career, since starting my company. So I feel like I'm kind of almost a little too comfortable with it. The day the stock market crashed, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I called up all my client partners and told them, hey, you know what? I don't know where this is going to go, but my gut, my spidey sense is kind of blaring on. I think there's going to be an economic recession on its way. And I said, what can we do to stay connected? What can we do to stay in community? I know that we have our business, dealings, but what can we do to just to be looking out for each other? And out of those conversations, I ended up, getting a few projects started at a discount, helping them out and helping me out to kind of basically just line up projects during this time. In some cases, one of our clients even went out of their way to pay us full rate and find more money to pay us because they wanted to take care of us. So that was fantastic. And I was able to, and by the way, so what it also gave me an opportunity to do was to practice transparency with my community circles. First, starting with my employees, telling them, here's where we're at, here's how much reserves we have, here's what I think the outlook is going to be, and here are the kind of key indicators I need to kind of look out for in order for us to determine our next steps. Then transparency with our client partners, which is what I described earlier, and also transparency with our partners who are relying upon us. So nonprofit organizations and industry associations in the area that are relying upon our sponsorship, to call them up and tell them we're still planning to renew for next year. Things are crazy, but those are things that you count on, because it's the uncertainty that's just going to do us in. It's the uncertainty that kills us. So part of it is, I think that one of the things that we could all do is kind of look out for our own communities and our own unique ways, and do our part to reduce uncertainty and to remind each other that our fates are intertwined, and that we will rise and fall together, both with my business partnerships as well as my role in the community around me.
I want to say something, Don, there, because really what you're talking about is you think as a business who your stakeholders are. And what's happening is there's an expansion. I think Zemo got at this very beginning. There's an expansion of who your stakeholders are. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's challenges and that's opportunities, but that is just a whole different way of looking at this. And I think you kind of answered, that's one of the opportunities in this moment, is to just start seeing stakeholders in a sense that's very different than what we normally call our self-interest.
Absolutely. And even beyond the individual, even institutions have institutional memory. And even institutions remember when you lend a hand to help in a time of need. And so this is an opportunity for us to invest in our communities and our networks, and hopefully they'll remember.
So what's your question around that? Because I know that's what you've been really chewing into, and pose that to the panel and let them, because they're all smarter than Dave and I. So let's get them on it.
So, one question I've been wrestling with is, what could we do collectively that would fail if any one of us tried to do it by themselves? But if we all did it together, we would all be better for it. It's kind of like the prisoner's version of the prisoner's dilemma. It's just like, what could we all do? And part of that requires trust, right? Because you don't want to be the only one kind of sticking your neck out on the line. But if we all kind of, committed to shared sacrifice for the benefit of our shared community, what could we achieve with coordinated action and trust? That is a question that I'm wrestling with right now, because again, I do believe that in the wake of this long isolation will become a long recovery. And I want to be a part of facilitating more action towards that, because I believe the communities that commit to that sense of shared community will be the ones to recover fastest.
Yeah, I agree. So quick housekeeping before we give the panelists a chance to answer that. We're getting close to 3 o'clock. A couple of our panelists have to jump off. I know Tom, Dawn, you have to jump off. We'll keep the conversation going if there are panelists left at the end, but wanted to make sure that we covered a couple of the pieces before a couple of the follow-up items from this event. So Dave and I and Zemo have been working together on a leadership realignment tool, really just a series of questions to help you reacquaint with your true north and understand what it means to navigate this season. We're just giving it away for free because it's, I think, really powerful way for you to get reconnected to who you are and where you need to be going in this moment. So that's going to come in an email. And then Dave, you want to just touch on the survey real quick?
Yeah, I think what I want to do is, the best part of doing this, I think, is just the community, people come together and the way people kind of shake their heads and like, oh my God, there's people just like me out there that are very different than me. And so we have a community we put together. We call it the Commonwealth, without getting into too much detail. But we meet on Thursday. We're having an open house this Thursday. There'll be a survey that'll come out. And we would just invite everyone to come to the open house and just be part of all this. You don't need to know much of the details.
Right.
But anyway, it's just the part of what we've done is put the like-minded people together. The other survey that I think I was supposed to talk about that I forgot about, but you would know.
Right. The survey. Yeah.
That's up to it. Do you want to take that away from me since I took one away?
Yeah, you get that right removed. No, so the survey that we're talking about, we are responding to the needs of the community, and that's the big thing for us. We're cooking up stuff that is in response to what people actually need. So if you could fill out a quick survey after this event, letting us know what you think is needed, what types of conversations need to be had, or different forums, what from the panel that you liked, didn't like, that would really help us to really inform the rest of what we do, because that's what it's about. It's about you guys, and it's about our community, and it's about the larger sense of stakeholders as Don was saying. So.
And one thing I want to add to that, which I would have added had I not stolen his, and he stole this back from me.
Right.
One thing we realized, we have way too much firepower for the amount of time we have here. So we're going to keep working in some configuration with this panel and maybe with others. So part of the survey is, rather than us thinking, oh, let's do this again, or let's get podcasts or whatever, we want to figure out the best way to harvest and to move forward with the people that we have here. So the survey is to help us figure out what the best way to do that as well.
Yeah. So we'll keep the conversation going. Again, if you have to hop off at 3, we understand, no problem. And I do want to open up back to Dawn's question is, what are the possibilities here for collective action, things that we could do better together than we would apart? And I do believe, for me, my bent is that the future is collaboration over competition. And we're seeing that more and more and more, that it's not about competing, it's about collaborating. And if we're going to survive as a human species and thrive as a human species, if we're going to thrive as a planet, it has to be done collaboratively. So even this, leadership tool that we cooked with Zemo, that was the heart and the curiosity, as Zemo called it in our conversation. We just got curious about what could we do together that we actually couldn't do apart. And so Zemo came in and he was the grown-up in our meetings with Dave and I, so that we could actually do something meaningful out of that. So one example. But panelists, what do you think? Anybody want to take a first crack at that? And if you are not unmuted, please unmute yourself, and I will try to help as well.
Zemo.
Oh, here we go. There's Zemo.
Thank you. Just to add a brief note to your answer there, collaboration in response to Don's question. And this is actually on my mind in response to Brett's question in the chat earlier. What we're doing here, which is basically dialoguing in a place where critical thinking can happen, that's a thing. That's the thing we could do. And collaboration takes dialogue. I'm noticing our public conversation has tended more and more towards passion and passionate exchange of opinions without necessarily a lot of listening and without a lot of critical thinking. So creating spaces where information and ideas can be exchanged and we're actually thinking together and not just hurling ideas at each other. We need that.
Right, which requires a certain level of openness and humility to be able to actually have those types of dialogues. I think you're right. And I do believe that the future is open source increasingly, so that we're actually sharing a lot more of this information. So yeah, thank you, Zemo.
And Don, since you're a technology guy, figuring out how we can do that on the technologies that seem to be leading us towards the passionate media bites, that would be awesome.
Right. Yeah, and I'd like Tom to chip in on that, especially on the technology front. Tom, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm still here. I have a couple of minutes. For me, it's the thing I'm trying to do is, like I said earlier, take away the asshole technology part of it. There's so much of it coming so fast and having to be implemented in my stores so quickly that it's a lot of stress on my employees and on my managers to deal with that. And it also is becoming their scapegoat for when something else goes wrong, to point to the technology being the problem. So finding that common ground where we all work together with it is going to be really important going forward, because I know everybody on this panel has probably had to implement new technology to their life that they really weren't using 2 months ago. We could start with Zoom. So right. all the little things that you're having to implement at this time are only going to continue to grow. So, and then for people who are ahead in building technology, find a way to pass that savings down to the bottom faster before the government makes you, which is right around the corner.
I'd also like, Tim, I know that you're not just a pretty face who put this together, and I'm wondering how these questions impact you with what you're, because you got thrown into the deep end with the Underground. They didn't put this in the job description when you came on board. So how are you responding to some of these same concerns as you're mentoring and helping the entrepreneurs in your community?
Well, I think to somewhat answer Don's question, so Don's an American Underground member with CrossComm, and thinking of how things that we can all do collectively to have an impact that wouldn't work individually or wouldn't be as effective individually, is we are viewing the return to the AU workspace. We're a virtual community, but we are based around a workspace. And as folks come back to that space, we're viewing it as a communal effort to keep everybody safe. So we can all only be as safe as we help each other to be. And a cornerstone of that approach is the AU Community Pledge that we have put together, which individuals review and agree to before they come back. And it's basic public health measures. It says, I will not come to the AU if I don't feel well. I will wash my hands. I will maintain social distancing. There's a lot that the AU as an organization can do to make some changes to the physical space, but really what's going to keep us safe as individuals is all of us together taking collective action to follow those public health measures and encourage and support our fellow community members to do the same.
Right, because as Don was saying, suddenly even our individual health relies on community health. And this is a very new time, which I think is true all the time, that our individual health, socially, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, all the E's, it always relies on everybody else, but this is exacerbating that or bringing it to light. So yeah, very, very well said.
I think we kind of talked about this before, is actually, yeah, we can talk about collaboration, but how are we actually going to collaborate? And in what spaces do you know someone that you can collaborate with or a friend of yours can collaborate with? And really actually making those connections and saying, oh, you need someone to do your social media. Okay, I have someone to do that for you. And then coming on here, maybe you guys are creating a space like this, possibly where there's some type of collective where people have their businesses and what they do and what they're good at. And there's some type of scroll option, what you're looking for, and just really creating that bank of places for people to go.
So what does that look like practically to actually, because I think you're right. I think we need to create environments that are conducive to collaboration, which to Zemo's point earlier, just requires a certain level of, or a certain way of approaching the world. So what can that look like on a really practical level, Aisha? Just creating those environments, what's needed for that?
So I'm doing it right now with creating my own app. And I know people hear app and like, oh, scream, but it's
not Don. Don is like, who? Oh, he's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, creating an app or a website where people can go on and say, oh, I'm looking for this, and this. And you go and you select it and you have the email or their contact information. And we're all going to be on Zoom or our phone some way. So making that one area in one place, specifically maybe for Durham, for people to go to.
So well said. Thank you. All right. Any other questions in the chat while we are on here, or any other comments that the panelists want to make? Anything that they feel like might have been missed in this that is important to this dialogue?
This will pass. COVID will pass.
Okay. And I'll say something. Even though I'm not a panelist. What I hear is that there's a way that collaboration feels like, well, another must, I got to do that. Oh my God, I got to wash my hands and I got to keep 6 feet away and I got to collaborate. And what I think we've noted, and it's something, again, in the Commonwealth, our group, is that actually collaboration is it's what's being called forth, and there's a great satisfaction that comes from collaboration.
So much fun.
We answer it, and we answer it. It's more obvious when we're in kind, when we're with our tribe, whatever that tribe looks out to be. And so there's just a way that I think leading with collaboration is where I want to go. And being met with that and finding such joy and such abundance in it. And I think that's one of the common threads that all of us have in this whatever this thing is, and beyond.
Sure. Well, and I mean, this event is that. It's us hopping on with Tim at American Underground, who's saying this is what's affecting our people. We're seeing the same thing. What do we do about it? And how do we collaborate? And this, I mean, even this panel has been richer because of the openness to collaborating to that. So thank you, Tim, for that. And I actually want to invite Tim, unless there's any other major points or comments, I actually want to invite Tim to land this plane and bring us home on this event. Any other logistics, Dave, before I hand it over to Tim?
No, just to recap really quick, there's the assessment, there's the realignment tool, which you and Zemo mostly have come up with. And I've been on the back sidelines watching you two cook this thing brilliantly. It's a great, valuable resource that'll be coming. There'll be information about the Commonwealth. I know there was a question in the chat about that. We'll get something out on that. Hop on it's invitation only, but Thursday's an open house, so anyone can come.
Right.
And also there'll be a quick survey that'll help us figure out what to do with this great collection of panelists and people we put together here. So
Yeah.
that's 3. That's my 3.
That's beautiful. You did great. You did great. Thank you so much for everyone being on here. Tim, land the plane.
Thanks so much to Justin and to Dave for facilitating this, to all the panelists for joining. We really appreciate you all coming together and all the participants for this conversation. I think the EU is just happy to be able to provide space for conversations like this as we all collectively explore what the next steps are going to be for each of us as individuals, as entrepreneurs, as businesses, and as communities. And I'm thankful for the time and thought that you all put into it today. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tim. Take care, everyone. Talk soon.
Bye, y'all.